Thank you. So it's like 6:30 back my time, so please bear with me. This morning I'm still a little sleepy. My presentation is called Practical Koha Customizations. And what I mean by that is small, approachable tweaks that can make a big difference. You don't need to worry. I'm not going to get into anything really in-depth, have any heavy coding or anything. I'm just going to show you some ideas that I put into practice at my library. And I'll show you how you can get started to make tweaks too. So a little bit about myself. I'm the Systems and Training Coordinator at Rapid City Public Library. We're part of a 13 library consortium. We don't have one person for the whole consortium who does Koha. I just do it for my library. I'm the de facto circulation supervisor and Koha tinkerer. I get the calls from the other libraries when they say, I'm not sure how to do this. So a little bit about our consortium, Black Hills Library Consortium. We're in South Dakota. We're made up of 13 independent member libraries. We share materials, but we don't share patrons. And we operate under common guidelines, but we don't have unified policies. And so what that means is that each library is pretty much doing its own thing. And because of that, sometimes my customizations have to only be geared just towards my library because I don't want to interfere with the workflows at other places. And this is my lovely cat, Sophie. I had to share her because she's also my screen, my desktop. She's not nearly as grumpy as she looks in that picture. So today's plan, we're going to look at 3 things. First, we're going to talk about adding some links and buttons to Koha. Then we're going to talk about a report that I updated to make it easier to use and think about how those ideas might inspire you to tweak some of your reports. And then lastly, we'll be talking about finding some resources and ideas. I'll share some of the places I get inspiration and ask you guys to share some of your ideas as well. So the first thing you might be asking is, why bother? Koha looks pretty good already. Most of your staff probably know how to get to what they need to get to. But there's always room for improvement. Our staff members are constantly juggling helping patrons with managing the collection, with doing the little tasks. They're on desk almost all the time, and they're always working with patrons and then having to interrupt buying new books, interrupt running reports for holds, things like that. They're just always busy. So if you can make Koha navigation easier, you're going to save time and reduce some repetitive tasks. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is a simple tweak that I made that just saved our staff some time. So we're going to start with what the problem was. Every morning our staff run a report. We call it the paging report, which is basically our holds to poll report. I don't know why we started calling it that. The library pages don't usually look for it. It's the volunteers. But that's just the terminology that we'll use. So I'll use that interchangeably with holds report here. So the problem was each morning staff had to get to that report. And it is only a few clicks, but it is a few more clicks than they really needed to do. I'm just going to show you their steps to get there. So you get to the reports, and then they had to know what to call the report. You either needed to know the number or the name of the report. If I searched for holds instead of paging, I'm going to get probably 20 to 30 reports because we have random reports that have the word hold in it. If I search for paging, I get about 5 reports that we run, and it's missing one of the ones that we can run for our paging. So we have different ones we run on different days of the week based on what of our consortium partners are looking for and when we pull holds for them. they asked us not to pull holds as often as they do, because we kept filling their holds before they got a chance to fill their hold. So once you get to the report, then you have to know the right one to use, and then you had to click run, and then you finally got to your report. So what the solution that I came up with was to add some links to the home page. And that's just right below the list of links that they're used to. As soon as they log in, it's right here at the bottom, so they can pick the day of the week that they wanted to run the report, click on it, and then it's just automatically run. There's no run button. I was even able to add a couple, one for our bookmobile, one for when we have no courier days. And if you want to know where or what that is and how to customize it, it is the intranet main user block. And this is something that you can customize in the tools section using the HTML customizations. So the first thing we're going to do is start simple. I made mine kind of fancy because I like it to look pretty, but you don't have to make it that fancy to start with. So to get there, you're going to go to Tools, Additional Tools, HTML Customizations. And there's a lot of cool things you can do in here. Some of these things that you can customize aren't in that section yet. They're still in the system preferences. But those are slowly being migrated over into HTML customizations. I think there's one coming soon that is the reports one. That'll soon be over here in HTML customizations. So this is what I start with, is just a list of links. And this is something you can do if you don't know very much HTML or CSS. It's pretty basic. And all it is a list of links. And I've got our report numbers, which ones we need, the names, and then a little title for it. If you don't know how to write HTML, there actually is a WYSIWYG in this, which stands for what you see is what you get. And it's just basically, here, I did a little video of the steps that I do through it. So if you're gonna go to HTML customizations, you find the block that you're editing, pick your libraries you want it to apply to. You have to have a publication date, otherwise it won't work. I don't think you have to have a title, but it's nice because then you know which one is which in your list of customizations. Just inserting a link in a bulleted list here, renaming it and saving it. So then I have Monday, and I just can do that, you know, for each day of the week. I've got my list. One of the cool things it does is when you click into this from the list of HTML customizations, there's a little drop down, and you can choose to either get to the text editor or go to the WYSIWYG. And once you go to one, it remembers that and it takes you back to that one. And then if you are in here and you want to look at the code, you can click this little button here, and that's the two bracket things, and that's where you can view the source and edit it and change the HTML yourself. And so then there's our paging report that we run. Okay. I lost my mouse. Okay, so then the next step I want to do is just add a little style to it. Now, if you want to make it a bit more eye-catching, you can actually use a bit of Koha's existing styles to improve your links. If you dig into Koha's CSS style sheet, if you look in the inspector, you can see some of the things that are already there. And one of the ones that I found is this buttons list. And if you style your buttons using that, you end up with something that looks a lot like the buttons that are already on Koha. So that's something that you can do without doing any more additional styling in your thing. You kind of are constrained to what Koha has decided to do with that class. And all I did to do that is I just, under that UL, I added the class buttons list, and that's what made it have those gray backgrounds. And when you click on them, they change to a different color. So just like all of the gray buttons that you find in Koha. And then you want to add a little fun, because most of the buttons in Koha have icons. So we've got, right now, Font Awesome is what the icons are. And they are, you can just go to the Font Awesome website and browse through and see what ones are there. And most of them are available to be used in Koha. I picked this calendar icon because I kind of figured it matched with the day of the weeks. One of the things, there is some changes that might be happening eventually about which icons we use. I'll go over that at the end when I talk about some of the bugs that are upcoming. So the last thing I'm going to do is a little bit of polishing up. You notice mine are green. I just, I wanted, instead of having a list going up and down, I wanted it side by side, and I wanted it to change when you change the size of your window. So I had to add style to mine, which you can see up there. I styled, right now the H3, the heading is the paging report. One of the things you have to know is that if you start changing styles of things, unless you use these classes, or like where it says H3 dot paging reports, and it has the classes down there, if you don't include that, it's going to start changing like the H3 in other parts of your page. So that's why I changed from buttons list to paging reports. I made up my own, so I'm only affecting this section that I'm working on. And then this is the style that I gave it to make it colored and have a little bit different responsiveness to the website. So if you're not a CSS expert, not a problem, neither am I. I'm learning as I'm going. I'm actually taking a class right now where I'm learning, and there's so much I don't know yet. But there's a lot of things you can do to learn. One of the easiest is use the inspect mode on your browser, and you can then see a lot of what's going on in your CSS. One of the things I like to do is take a little bit of it and then ask ChatGPT, what is this doing? And it'll tell me. I don't recommend having it do all the code for you, but it really is a good teacher. It'll tell you, it'll explain in really simple terms what the CSS, what the jQuery is doing, and kind of give you an idea of what you can do with it. You can ask it, hey, style this for me, and it might work, but I would recommend doing it on your own and then asking it for help or asking it to teach you how to do it. Another recommendation, start small. Like I just started with just the links. That's all I had was the links. And then I thought, well, can I make them buttons? Can I add an icon? I just did, the steps that I showed you. And then finally, there's all kinds of tutorials online. There's things that koha-US has done, that Bywater has posted on their site. So just start searching. I do think that ChatGPT or another AI, they're fun to talk to and listen and see, how does this work? So that's another recommendation. All right. I'm not sure how fast I'm going, but we're going to move on to the next section. So this next part is a report, that same report that they run with the click of the button. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I cleaned that up when I took over the Koha section so that it was just easier for my staff members to use that report. So one thing that was a big learning curve when we came on to Koha was figuring out how to make reports using SQL. So we did a lot of copying of other people's reports and then slowly learned what we could do. We were just using the ones that were out there that seemed kind of good for us. The cool thing about Koha is that these reports, there's so much, you can do you can report on so much stuff. We get really excited and make reports, and then we don't think about the practicalities of how they're used once we write it. So the first thing, we had a problem with the paging report. We call it the paging report. We didn't like the built-in holds queue because there were a few things that were wrong with it. Basically, it didn't filter very well. It does not print well. You can't really get it prints way better than it used to because they've separated like the publication details out from the title and stuff like that. It doesn't have as much custom sorting as we like. You can't click and say, hey, this is missing. I found it. And you have to be logged in to Koha to use it unless you print it off. And we usually have volunteers who are searching for our holds and they don't have Koha logins. So, not sure what. The first custom report that we had was built on the reserves table. And it didn't have all the stuff we needed. We only had the title. We didn't have any more identifying. Well, we had the title and the author, and we needed more identifying information. We had to go through an Excel and sort it and remove some extra rows that we didn't need, like suspended items. We had to filter out some of the pickup locations that we didn't want to do that time. So this is part of our original report, just the select statement, which I didn't like because it was way too much. And then we had all of the joins, which when I started, I didn't even understand. I didn't know you could join tables twice. So I was like, why are we doing this? Why are we looking through all of these tables and doing so much? And then we were filtering out all kinds of stuff. We didn't want specific items, damage type, all of that. We were saying, don't do this. It's like, why don't we just find something that already gets rid of all of that stuff? And what we found was the temporary holds queue. And that just builds off of the holds queue that's built into Koha. So the temp holds queue table is where it pulls from. And it does most of the things that we wanted it to do. And then I added a few more things. It already gets out the suspended holds. It has way less in the where statements. We can make multiple reports that have the pickup locations included. And if you see my select statement, my from statement, and my where statement all fit on one slide now. And we actually probably could leave off these two middle ones, but we're paranoid and we don't want to accidentally pull those ones because they aren't supposed to have holds on them. But they probably won't show up on the holds queue anyway. So a few things I changed. We went from a reserves table to the temporary holds queue. We started with just the title and we pulled in the part name, part number, and subtitle. And then we went from 8 joins to 3 joins, and it was a 5-page procedure for staff to get it ready for printing. And now it's just a 2-page procedure, which sometimes you can't get rid of the procedure entirely, but it was way better. So I don't know if you noticed, oh, there was one more thing I was gonna mention on here. Let me see here. Oh, we had to do I had to make sure my Koha to mark mappings were correct for everything. If yours were old, they might not have had some of these, but I think that these ones were all good. There's some other Koha to mark mappings that weren't set up when we first got on, but these are all, these fields, we were concatenating the title with the extract value from the subtitle to start with our original. So now we're just pulling in the subtitle because of the koha to mark mappings. So I don't know if you noticed that I left out our order by sorting on that final report. And that's because this is all we had in the original report. We were location, item type, collection code, call number. Seems like that should be good enough, right? Well, our library's a little weird. We have what we call Dewey Light in our adult nonfiction. So those little nooks of books up at the top, each one is a section that's a subject, and then it's organized by Dewey within that subject. And it's not alphabetical order, it's not an order of Dewey. So South Dakota's way at the front. I think language arts is way at the back. There's math and science, animals is one of our categories. And so if you started at the front and then started looking going towards the back, you kind of want to be able to have those in the order so that you don't have to go back and forth looking for things. And so this is just a little example. This is using Stack Map. It's a great addition to your Aspen catalog if you have it. And they can just click on a little where is it button and it tells them where in your library this is. So here you can see our technology section is on that little short shelf right in the middle there. And we have technology as the collection code, and then it's also in the call number because we couldn't get people away from having it in the call number. So with that minimal sorting that we have, it kind of had some scary searching. So to remedy that, I added some scary sorting. And with this scary sorting, we got some easy searching. So I have a huge case win statement in my order by. And it was a few things when I started, and then I just kept adding and adding once I realized that you could do more than just 0 through 9. But you have to realize that like 10 comes before 2 in the sorting, and then alphabetical comes after that. So that's why I have this like Z down here, because if it's none of those things, then it gets assigned Z and it goes to the end. And then it gets sorted by collection code and item call number after that. And it works pretty well. The only thing I think it doesn't really sort any of our children's stuff, but that's pretty basic. They just need to know fiction, nonfiction, picture books, board books. We did not Dewey Light our children's section, which is usually people do the opposite. They do the children's and not the adult. So finally, a few things that I learned. I'm not sure why it's only showing. There we go. So if you build your report only to include the data they need, they don't have to spend a lot of time cleaning it up. And you want to pick the right table. The holds queue is a better starting point than our reserves table. Small tweaks can make a big impact. Things like adding the part number don't sound huge, but staff notice right away when it's there, and they notice when it's not. You want to match your reports to your workflows. You don't just want the data. You want it to be something that they can use. That means thinking about how the report will actually be used, not just how to write it. And these aren't one-off improvements. Every day, staff are spending less time fixing reports and more time actually pulling holds. I have no idea how much time I have.
You have 15 more.
Okay, great. I have one more section. So this next section is our finding resources. So I talked about some things that I tweaked to save staff time. Hopefully it inspired you to look at something small that you can do for your staff. If you're thinking about it but aren't sure where to get started, I have a few recommendations for finding resources. So you can start maybe with the Koha tools that are at hand. The manual is pretty easily accessible. All you have to do is click on the little help in your Koha staff, and then you get right to the manual, and you can start searching there. If you click on a specific page that you're looking at, it usually takes you to the general area of that part of the manual. The other part is the Koha wiki. There's so much good stuff in here, but there could be so much more. There is a CSS customization section, and then there's like a jQuery library, but I didn't notice very much in the CSS customizations yet. So if you have something that you've done, it'd be really cool if you added some in there. And I do believe there's a terrific every other Thursday about how to add things to the wiki, because I followed it to add some reports at one point. Another thing you can do is learn online. W3 Schools, I really like using that to learn about HTML, CSS, jQuery. It walks you through, it has a try it editor that you can put some code in. You click into that and you can start messing around and adding your stuff and see how it's gonna look. Like I said, ChatGPT, I use that to ask it, hey, what's this doing? How does this work? How do I make this green? It'll help me with things like that. YouTube has lots of tutorials, videos, especially the koha-US channel. Just start browsing through what's on there. And then of course this community, koha-US and the Bywater Solutions website both have great education resources that you can access. One thing I wanted to highlight is some bugs that were bugging me while I was doing this, and some things that are coming soon. So that intranet main user block was moved to the HTML customizations not that long ago. And then there's, I think the patrons page also has that. We added like a little blurb about how to register patrons to the bottom of ours. The next thing that's coming in 2505 is the staff instructions. So when you first get to the login screen, you used to have to go to a system preference to add things to that front page, and now it'll be in HTML customizations. One thing to note is it doesn't really work to set it per library because they don't know which library you're using until you actually log in. So you just have to do it for all libraries at this point. And then coming soon in 2511, the reports homepage will have that extra section that you can customize in the HTML customizations. And then there's a couple more bugs, one to do the circulation one. That one also is one that I'm really looking forward to being able to mess around with and not affect the other libraries, because I want it to be just for my library. That's why moving them to the HTML customization section is so good for me, because then I can apply it just to my library. I believe that there may be, oh yeah, there's a bug here that I want to get done. It doesn't have any movement on it yet, but to be able to select a couple libraries to say, hey, apply this customization to, because like we have our library and our bookmobile, and I would like to have the same content on both of those. But I know another one of our libraries, Custer and Hermosa, they might want to put the same thing on their libraries. One thing to keep in mind is that the Koha is always changing, and a lot of times it's because of things that are changing as a whole. There's a bug to move from Font Awesome icons to Bootstrap icons because Font Awesome is slowly moving a lot more of their stuff behind a paywall. And so we want to use something that's free. And so there's a bug that I believe Lizette has claimed that she's going to be working on. And it probably is going to take a long time. You can use Font Awesome for now and it'll work perfectly. The next thing, she's also got, I saw Lizette's name on this one too, the bug to replace user.js and user CSS with snippets, which you would be able to, instead of having a whole lot of, if you go into internet user.js and internet user CSS in your system preferences, and you can have a whole bunch of jQuery code that you've done to edit, and this would allow you to just have a snippet that you put in instead of having to manage it. I believe that's how Aspen does it. I don't use Aspen at my library, somebody else does, but I think it would make things a lot simpler and easier to customize. And let's see, what else did I have? Oh yeah, and so there's the library group was the one that I think would be cool. And then also just selecting multiple libraries. And for some reason, I have this bug twice. I'm not sure why I do. So that's a little bit about what I did to make little tweaks to my library. I would love to do more. Sometimes though, it's hard to come up with an idea. So I would love to know if any of you have things that you've done to tweak your libraries, that you would say, hey, here's something I did. It would be cool if you wanted to try it, or if you guys have any questions for me. Otherwise, I'm done with my presentation. You can always contact me. I'm in the sysadmin SIG, so bring your questions to there or send me an email if you need to. Molly has a question.
Hi, Molly from ULIS Library. I had a question. Oh, but it's not important. I did want to tag, you were talking about resources, and I try to promote this wherever I go, and I don't know who I'm promoting it for, but someone in France made a Koha report assistant on ChatGPT. So I've been able to create reports with it, and my person who does know code, they've been able to like, why isn't this report working? And they can throw it through this assistant, like, you got an extra comma, bro. So anyway, I recommend that. If you go to chatgpt.com and just search for Koha report assistant, it's a specific report chat that we can use to help us out with that. Anyway, this is all awesome, and I'm excited to try it out.
I'm going to seize my microphone privilege to say that, on the other hand, I have also gotten support tickets of when I run this report that I asked ChatGPT to write for me. It gives me a big scary error in my system. So be careful with your ChatGPT reports. George has a question in the back, or maybe the online people have a question in the computer. Oh.
I'm just curious, what version of Font Awesome are we currently using in Koha? I can never remember off the top of my head, and that's something that if you want to use Font Awesome, you have to remember. And Nick is raising his hand. I think Nick needs the microphone so he can answer this for us. If you look at the About page, Nick says that's where you find that stuff. And this is George for the people online.
If you want to look up the bug, you might see what Lizette has planned, but I'm assuming it would be a big deal once it goes, because you wouldn't want to have to just all of a sudden lose all of your icons.
Hey, Molly, what was that question specifically?
Oh, I just sneak it in so you wouldn't have to run. Molly, again, I asked if our Font Awesome icons would go away when we switch to Bootstraps.
I think it's in really early stages of planning right now.
Are there other questions? Okay. Well, thanks, Juliet.